Welcome to Heywood and Stuff, where I dive deep into the human experience with humour and heart. Join me as I explore self-awareness, growth, and the stories of people who have overcome some of life's challenges. I'm here to share positivity, gratitude, but most importantly, me. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being a part of it. Cheers. This is a fun little episode for you coming up. I am talking to Zane. He's a barber by trade, but he's been a chef. He's a musician. He's done all sorts. He's done more than most people should be doing. Big on the mental health front. He is part of this MENS group, which we discuss within the podcast. But at the beginning, he talks a little bit about why mental health is such a poignant thing for him, why it's important. And then we finally talk about how he introduced himself into spirituality, actually. In this episode, you can expect lots of mental health talk, and particularly why and how men can be helped and why the need is so great, more than ever, actually, for there to be more support for our fellow man. Enjoy. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers, man.
Zane.
Hello.
We finally made it. We're fucking here, man.
Right, what, 3 weeks? No, a month, I think.
I feel like it's months since
I
we
think
decided
it's more,
to do this.
actually. Yeah, because I cut your hair like
It was a good
2-3
couple of
months ago. Yeah, and we were talking about it then. But
What I liked is that we only spoke for a matter of minutes, and I already knew. I was like, this guy's got to come on the podcast.
I can beat you because I'd seen you around Wheatley Bay. I was like, I need to talk to that guy.
Really?
Yeah. Like before I knew who you were, I'd seen you dotting around.
Yeah.
Because I'm always outside the shop having a smoke, and I'd seen you dotting around. I was like, it's a cool motherfucker, right? It's a cool motherfucker. I need to talk to a cool motherfucker. And I saw you at the cafe.
Yes, that was the first.
Dakota.
Dakota.
Yeah, lovely ladies in there. And
Shout out Dakota.
Yeah. Oh no, they're
amazing.
They make me the best breakfast. Those guys, and they're really cool. Like that little small business community is so cool. But yeah, I saw you in there, and like I braved the. Shall I talk to him? I was like, give a hi, and then I found out that a friend of mine at the time you worked with his mother, and then that bridged a little gap when I think we saw it.
We bumped into each other again.
Yeah,
in Whitley Bay.
And then you came in for a haircut, and it was like, what, a 15, 20-minute chat?
I mean, I went for the haircut with the idea of like, right, if I'm picking up the right energy, I'm going to ask him to come on the podcast pretty early on.
Oh, sweet.
And that's exactly what we're here for. What I didn't know was what we would talk about, but it became evident after having our last chat.
Yeah.
That mental health is quite like a poignant part
huge
of what you're about.
Yeah. Huge.
And what you're passionate about.
Yeah, massively.
Which ties in well for me. Why do you think mental health has become such an important part for you? When did it begin? When did the damage begin?
Tell me your origin story. Yeah, I think... I mean, I've always had my own issues with mental health, but it wasn't so prevalent. Like, it wasn't called mental health. Like, you know, when I was 20, the term mental health was, ooh, there's a schizophrenic in a loony bin somewhere. You know, it was just... And just as, like, the 90s rolled through into, you know, the noughties and all this... And as we became more connected, I think, you know, through technologies and social media, a lot of shared experiences were like, oh, wait, hang on. I feel like that as well. I've never heard it worded before. I think around that era, you know, around that acceptance time where people were now suddenly like, oh, they're not just sad. There's a fucking issue going on. And then somebody else would relate to it. And I sort of see that happening a lot. And there's a lot of, if I'm just really blunt, there's been a lot of, I mean, I'm going to choose the word wisely for social media, but self-unaliving in my life and, you know, and friend groups from family members and stuff.
Oh, okay. So you've experienced a lot of that with family members and friends.
Yeah. A lot more friends. I've lost to themselves, essentially, and a fair few family members on both sides of my family. And I'm a human. I've danced with my own thoughts about it and stuff like that. But when I think the turning point when I realized that, fuck, this is something I care about, was when somebody mentioned about, self-unaliving. And I was like, oh yeah, it happens, man. It's part of life. And they were like, no, it's really not. Like, that's a big issue. And I was like, is it? And they were like, well, I've never experienced it. And then the more people that I spoke to and everything like that, I was sort of like, crap. This is big fucking issue. Yeah. And it's something everyone's aware of, but not everyone experiences. And then that made me reflect on myself. I was like, oh, maybe not everyone feels this way. Because, when you're growing up, you just think the way I think is the way other people think.
So to put into context, not everyone feels this way. What is it?
At that time, I mean, it's not like that now. Like, my mental health's pretty durable and good. I put myself through the ringer a lot, and I've done a lot of work in like the past 10, 15 years or so. But that detachment is the only way I can word it, which is really weird because I actively practice and encourage detachment in a spiritual sense.
Yeah, right.
But just this complete, 20 years ago, if me and you were sat here right now, this facial expression would be on, but it would just be this.
Yeah.
Nothing behind it. It would be like I'd be doing it because, well, that's what we're supposed to do. And that gap got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it was like watching yourself fall away, right. Type of thing.
I have that when I look back on my teens and my 20s especially. I was so detached from who I was.
Yeah.
And I know that I was putting on a facade for everybody else, but I wasn't even being true to myself. Like, I didn't even realize myself that I was doing it.
Yeah.
It was I just kind of, I don't know, it was like I was just reacting and responding.
Yeah, it's the reaction bit, I think. Yeah. That's the real, because it's kind of like I don't want to say like a chameleon, but it's a bit like a camouflage that you put up. You say, no, I'm cool. I fit in. It's all right. I'm here. Yep. I hear what I feel the same way. And you're saying the words. There's a lot of this, but this is just like, I don't get it. And it wasn't even necessarily low. It was just like, I don't get it. I don't.
Yeah, that's right. Because mental health doesn't necessarily mean that you're depressed. Like, mental health can mean so many other things. You can just being detached from yourself can be like a mental health problem.
Absolutely, right? Yeah.
It's such a wide spectrum of stuff.
And I've discovered that more and more. I asked my brother about this, if I could mention it, and he said yes, because obviously, we've met up a couple of times at chats and in the talks about ADHD and stuff like that. He's diagnosed. He was over the moon with it because he had like a name for he could place why certain actions are this way, why his responses are this way. And now he can build a structure in which to deal with those same things. And when he very first told me about this, about his ADHD, I was really dismissive of it.
How long ago was this? Sorry?
Not too long ago, actually, to be honest. Really not too, within the past 12 months. Yeah. And and I hate that he's my brother. We're so close. We're really close. He's a wonderful guy. And he pulled me on it, which is cool because we've got that relationship.
Well, he checked you.
Yeah, totally. He mentioned it. And at the time, everything I'd heard about ADHD was there was so many different schools of thought on what it was, how it occurs, and how it should be treated, and even if it should be treated, which is a real school of thought as well, you know. And I was just kind of like, well, everyone's got fucking ADHD these days.
Yeah.
Because that's all I heard was just like, everyone's got fucking ADHD, you know. And he mentioned something about it, and I think I even said something along the lines of, well, it's a highly disputed thing, isn't it? You know, and I just totally brushed it. I wasn't being a brother to my brother. I wasn't listening. And he checked me on it. He turned around and said, look, that really hurt when you were so dismissive of this. And I was like, wait, if this is causing a reaction in one of the closest people on the planet to me, there's something to it.
Yeah.
So I, a bit of a mirror talk. Okay.
Nice.
Drop it. Go read into it. And I'm still as fucking confused. I am so fucking confused. So there's like,
I mean, to play devil's advocate,
okay, yeah.
I personally think you have ADHD.
You're not the first person to say that to me as well. Yeah.
But also, because I've had these conversations with other people that were hesitant about diagnoses, whether it be like ADHD or autism, like on the spectrum, and like very hesitant to be like, oh, all these letters and blah, blah, blah. And then they got a diagnosis, and then things started fitting into place. And it's like, I don't know where what's the word that I'm looking for? The hesitancy comes from. I think the problem is that it does seem like everybody's saying that they've got these things, but it's something like 10% of people has ADHD. It's a really big percentage.
A big volume.
It's a lot.
10% is a big volume.
And what's tragic is that the majority of them aren't diagnosed, and some of them haven't even got any notion that they might have it. And I've been to like ADHD groups back in Brighton, and this is when I'd just been diagnosed. And we spoke with a big group of people, and there was this one lady in particular, and she was like in her 50s, and she was saying like, I've had ADHD my whole life. I've never managed to do anything. I've never completed anything in my life, and it was like just this like blanket of sadness.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's such, and she realized she had ADHD later on. I was like, it's such a shame that society doesn't accept that this ADHD thing is here.
Yeah.
And that the people with ADHD need some extra tools and help with or without medication.
I think the tools thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I do believe that and I know people with ADHD that are perfectly fine doing their thing without medication.
I mean, that's completely reasonable to think, you know. I mean, I remember reading a true case of a psychological lecturer in America, and he gave his students this test, and it was the psychopathy test, and it was all anonymous, and it was just to see if anybody had, you know, any of the traits. And it turned out one person nailed every fucking box. This person was a psychopath.
Right. For everyone to see.
Yeah, but they didn't know. It turned out it was the lecturer.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Nice.
He had a family. He had 2 kids. He loved his wife. So there's a real misunderstanding. Like, if I say to somebody, oh, that guy's a psychopath, straight away it's like, great murderer, or they're fringe, they're ready to go. And I'm not trying to normalize psychopathy. It's just an extreme thing. But the only telltale sign for this guy and his family was... I shouldn't laugh, sorry, but whenever the kids ate in the kitchen when it wasn't dinner time, he'd mumble to himself, there's people in my house eating my fucking food.
That's when it slips.
Yeah, that was where it slipped. Yeah. But he wasn't masking. He didn't know. He thoroughly loved his wife. And it completely changed our understanding of what psychopathy and being a psychopath is. And I think that's the case with ADHD now. I think now it's a case of, I mean, there was people like me who I took it completely the wrong way, which is just shut the fuck up, stop talking about this fucking thing. Just give the kid a slap, he'll behave. You know, that type of mentality that comes with it. But now it's that much, I don't think it is understood properly.
No, I don't.
But I think it's vocalized more, and that we now understand there are characteristical traits in people that they all line up together. And they all need the same, not the same, but they all need the same flavor of coping mechanisms, working tools, some cases medication, some cases not medication, and
an understanding,
an
understanding, especially for like an employee-employer type of relationship, even within friends and like relationships. Because I don't know how many people with ADHD just. I mean, I've had like 6 relationships, and I fucked up every single one.
Right.
I always thought it was their fault, and it was only when I look back I was like, it was definitely. And I've said this many times, like it was me. Like I put my hands up, it was me, and a part of why it was me was the ADHD.
Okay.
Right. Because the ADHD has certain traits where like very short-tempered and. You know, emotional deregulation, like a lot of, like your dopamine levels are quite low, so you struggle to do the mundane things in life.
Right.
Which a lot of people that have the right dopamine levels, neurotypical, they would just be able to do it because doing the laundry alone is enough satisfaction. That's enough of a motivation to do it. But anyway,
is this like the reward system? That
there is no reward for doing something that you're not interested in. With ADHD,
okay,
not even on the smallest scale. Anyway,
just interject.
Yeah.
Could that, because I'm a very big fan of this kind of new wave movement of they call it biohacking, which just sounds so futuristic and fucking
I've heard
cool,
of it,
man. You know, like I'm gonna alter your skin so it can be like concrete. No, what we're doing is understanding the relationship and regulation between emotion and hormonal release in the brain. So dopamine being a hormone or chemical release in the brain. And there's a lot of people proactively finding ways to regulate and all the different ones. So, you know, cortisol as well, like it's a stress hormone, but it's super important because that's the one that gets us out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
Too high of cortisol, you're going to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And these guys and gals are kind of performing all these different practices. There's a lot of cold training in, which you and I've spoke about, I'm a very big fan of and all that. And they're proactively doing these things to, in response to the dopamine. One of the biggest ones that I read, and it's a great thing, when you see the hyperachiever, the one who just constantly seems to win everything, does everything. Watch their celebration. It's very short-lived. They don't allow the dopamine to be about the celebration. They get their dopamine from the work to the
process,
goal. Yeah. So because obviously I'm completely dumbfounded with the ADHD thing. Is that something that can be physically worked on,
100%.
or is it just that the levels are so low that it needs like medication?
So I think this is why there needs to be more. I think this is why these conversations are so important, because I don't think even people that know that ADHD, I don't think they realize just how much they can help themselves. Right, because they can.
That's interesting.
Because so sugar is an ADHD person's worst nightmare.
Right. Yeah.
Don't do it. Stay away from it. Carbs, because essentially sugar.
Yeah, just quickly sugar. Stay the fuck away from everyone.
Yeah.
Don't.
Yeah. Everything that applies to like the average person without ADHD is the same, but almost like even more important, if you like, for someone with ADHD. Yeah. So like exercise is one of the best ones for building up your serotonin. Yeah. Like I would say to everyone with ADHD, if you can, to stop eating the junk food and to go do exercise. The problem is with the ADHD is the motivation to go to the exercise is so difficult.
Okay.
And the desire to eat the junk food, and I wholeheartedly believe this, is greater than the average person, because eating that junk food, you get that dopamine hit
straight away.
And you get that, you get closer to the baseline more, which you're not used to. So the dopamine hit is all that much sweeter.
You get closer to the baseline. Fuck. Yeah. Yeah, just so everyone I'm thinking.
So someone with like regulated dopamine levels are neurotypical.
Yeah.
They just feel good and bad, right?
Yeah.
But an ADHD always just feels a little bit below good.
Right. Okay.
And then really bad. Okay. And then you mix in like the hypersensitivity that comes with it. There's the short-lived attention span, which is a misconception. It's actually an attention span to everything. It's just you can't focus on it.
Yeah, I'd read that before, that it wasn't that there was if you look at the attention deficit disorder. It's not that there's a deficit of attention. It's that the attention is so stretched out because it's onto everything.
Right.
That was one of the first things that I could kind of understand. I was like, that makes sense to me. I can see, particularly, I'm sorry, Connor, but with regards to my brother, I'm like,
Yeah. Like, for example, I couldn't have a clock in this room because while I'm talking to you, I'd hear it ticking. But it's ticking so loud and I can't filter it out. And it's just a sensory thing.
I get that with plug sockets.
Yeah.
At night.
What happens with the
I can
plug
hear the
socket?
plug sockets. I can
Can
hear
you?
the buzz of electricity. I can hear them in
That's
the front
because you're in
room.
tune with another dimension, my
That's
friend.
all it is. But no, I can.
And you've got ADHD.
I can hear. But no, I can, like, a fucking plug socket in the front room. There's one in particular. It's at the back wall on
noise
the
do they
left.
make?
It's just a little. I can just hear the buzz.
That would fuck me up.
I know when it's not turned off. I've got a rule: turn that fucking plug off.
would
I can
fuck me
hear
up.
it. I can hear it from the other room.
With Briggy, she's very hypersensitive. If we're walking along a road, do not talk to her. You can't talk to her because she's struggling so much with the sounds of the cars.
Wow,
going past,
really? Is it
and
that?
Can't filter it out. It becomes like amplified. So then, if you try talking to her, it's like her brain is competing with two sounds.
Yeah,
and it's just like, don't do it because you get overwhelmed. The overwhelm just kicks in.
It's like the overstimulus, isn't it? It's, I mean, I can't. I can kind of relate to it a little bit. Like I know when too many people are talking. When too many people are talking, and particularly if one person is talking to me, and another one is trying to talk to me, I
get angry. I mean, I'm medicated now.
I become really rude. I take 2 steps back and walk out the room.
Yeah.
It's happened in the
That's regulating this.
in the bar in the ticket, shout out to the ticket office. It's happened in there before. And there's a wonderful gal who works there, Phoebe. She's crazy as fuck. And she's pointed it out a few times. She's seen where I've just kind of gone clamp. I've took 2 steps back and I've just walked out the door and gone for a cigarette.
Yeah, nice.
And I've come back in and she's just laughing. She's pointing at me. I'm like, what? She was like, you got so overstimulated. You just had to fucking leave, didn't you? I'm like, yeah, I did. But I just, again, if we throw back to what you said earlier about understand when did the awareness of mental health things come out? That with what happened, it's happened a few times in the bar where I've just kind of like, there's... I'm just such a fucking popular guy in that place.
People
They
love you.
me. Everyone wants to talk to me at once. You know, I'm the greatest patron of the bar. And I've had to step out a few times, and I noticed that when I was like 16.
That was that was a thing.
Yeah, and it did seem to like come out of nowhere. I was like, I need to leave. There's too many fucking people talking, or the noise is off. And stuff like that. I just used to call it the vibe, the vibe. It's too far. When I realized it was just too many people going at me at once. But I started to notice other people doing the same thing. And I noticed the people outside of the nightclub, we used to go to Cuba when we were kids. And you'd go outside for a cigarette, and a cigarette's always been my get out of jail free card.
Yeah.
So it's too much going on. I need a fag. I'm just going to go for a quick ciggy.
A quick reset.
Yeah. And you'd see like groups of people having a cigarette outside who wanted the nicotine. And then you'd see all these individuals just lined up, not looking at each other. Just like, cigarette, head down.
Yeah.
I can go back.
Yeah, bars and
back in.
clubs are massively overstimulating.
Yeah. I suppose that's where it's like a lot of the... I was reading something about drug use in regards to ADHD, and more in particular, the kind of unconscious self-medicating of it. Nobody's sitting there going, I've got ADHD, and fuck it, I'm going to smoke 9 joints because it makes me feel better. That's
not usually that
no,
aware, right?
Whenever anybody says self-medication, I know that image comes up. They're like, oh, fuck, life's so stressful, I'm going to stick a needle in my arm. It's like nobody has that thought process. It's a response or a reaction to something. And I was quite curious about drug use within the ADHD or ADD community. just
It's rife.
yeah, and
huge.
I can imagine it. And yeah, I did message my brother and said, are we okay to talk? But I'm going to be a little tentative about what I say. He's never had drug issues where he's been on heroin or anything like that. But the self-medication aspect, I can see so clearly. So clearly. And sometimes I kick myself about that because I think back to like when he was, like 18, 19, 20. I was like, 28, 29. Young enough to still be like, cool, brother. I probably still had quite bad drug addiction at that point. And, we used to get together and smoke and stuff, like sniff together and stuff like that. And I can't help those little guilt pangs about, fuck, what the fuck am I feeding? Like, what did I feed into back then? And
do you still carry that guilt now?
Always, yeah. I carry loads of guilt with my brother. Loads of guilt because I love him so much. He's such a good guy. And like, I just was not a good human, to be blatantly frank. I was a fucking awful. I was very fake.
But having met you, I feel like, so you say that you weren't a good human, but possibly because you didn't have the tools to be yet. Because
I don't know.
Because you're a good human now.
Well, I'm not. I'm working on it.
Okay.
It's a constant work in progress, I think. I'm not naturally calm.
What do you constitute as a good human then?
Or
what makes you a bad human, rather?
Okay. I can say what did make me a bad human was I had a complete disregard for other people's feelings if I could if I could get my goal.
Yeah, right.
And if I saw that possibly caring for feelings would get me my goal, I'd do that.
Yeah. I shouldn't smile either, but
drugs.
I resonate with it so much.
Yeah, there's a few people I've spoken to quite openly about this, and I would say about 70% are like, dude, you fucked up. But the other 30% are like, oh no, I totally see where you come from. I'd do anything to get my hands on cocaine and ecstasy, anything. And I was so fucking manipulative and fake with it. And it kind of got to the point where it was almost conscious.
Really?
Yeah, almost like kind of, what do they call it? Sociopath. They're almost sociopathic. Just like
you knew, but you didn't care.
I can get you to get what I want.
Yeah, drugs, man.
It almost, it was the drugs that did that.
Yeah.
For me, it was cocaine and ecstasy.
It's drugs, so my view of thinking is that anyone that's really taking drugs, they're using it to cope with something.
A lot of the time.
Nobody wants to have a drug problem, right?
No.
A lot of people.
And that's why I said to you,
if you're trying to cope, you'll do anything you need to do to cope.
Get that.
It's just you were good at it. You know what I mean?
I was so
like some people are really
it.
shit at it.
I was so good at it.
And it takes, not to glamorize being manipulative, but it takes certain intelligence to be good at manipulating people.
Well, there was another aspect that I really indulged in, and that was just hyper promiscuity. Hyper promiscuity. And I this is going to feel so bad because I know my mum's going to watch this.
Okay.
Hi, Mum.
What's your mum's name?
Liz. She's
Liz.
a wonderful human. Wonderful. She's fucking 60 odd and hangs upside down on a pole.
Yeah,
she's fucking crazy. She's crazy.
Amazing.
But she's got a really interesting backstory as well, which I think for podcast in the future.
Yeah. We'll get her on. Let's get her on.
That'll be interesting. But she used to say to me, she used to call me the serial monogamist. Because I always had a girlfriend and I was always in long-term relationships. And I used to giggle and say, no. I think if I'm really honest, 2 relationships in my entire life have I been completely monogamous. And it was never, I'm bored of this person, so I'm going to find indulgence elsewhere, or something isn't working in the relationship. It was just, there's an opportunity. Fuck yeah, let's go. Grab it. Guilt would come afterwards, but it was so short-lived because another opportunity would come up. And so despite being able to manipulate people to get, drugs or whatever I wanted, I was so good at getting sex.
Yeah. But that's a drug in itself, right?
It really is. And dude, that fucking nearly killed me. it nearly killed me. That I had more guilt about using people for sex.
Really?
And yeah. So I used to have this phrase where I was like, I'm not guilty because I've taught, and I'd be so blunt with girls. I'd be like, even in the club, I'd be like, nothing's happening after this. They'd be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But I'd string them as if it was. And it would almost appear like my nothing's going to happen after this was bravado, and they knew they could get past it, but I was setting them up for that. And that was a fucking horrible, I mean, great. I don't know. No, it wasn't great, but I don't know.
You know, I wanted to be like that, but I had such sexual anxiety that I couldn't.
Right,
I physically couldn't
do it.
I would I was quite good. I was quite good at like, you know, schmoozing them and all of that, and like playing the game and being like that. But then I'd always like end up in this paranoid mess of sexual anxiety.
Oh, I'm gonna come too soon. It's not gonna work.
No, because even before.
Oh, fuck.
Even before, couldn't even do the deed.
Oh God, couldn't even get there.
It's terrible. So like, sex would have been my drug of choice, but I couldn't open the packet.
Yeah, there was a couple of times I couldn't open the packet.
So you know, cocaine and ecstasy.
Yeah,
they worked for me. You know.
I mean, there's some real interesting studies on ecstasy and on MDMA. And just for anybody listening who thinks they're the same, trust me, us guys and gals who were in their heyday in the 90s, there's a difference between MDMA and ecstasy. There is a chemical compounding difference to it. Yeah. But in the way that we were using it,
it is different.
Not so good. But there's been some awesome studies on the use of ecstasy in terms of managing depression. Really good studies.
I saw this one documentary which is all about this. What's the term? It's psychedelic therapy or something.
Yeah.
What's the term? But anyway, they do it with psilocybin as well.
Oh,
even
yeah,
LSD,
ketamine. Psychotropic therapies.
Yeah.
And microdosing mushrooms.
Yeah, microdosing mushrooms, but even on like much higher dosages to unpack past traumas and stuff. But there was this one couple, and the lady had cancer, terminal, and I think she had like months. And they had a session on MDMA, and they were able. It's beautiful. They were able to have all those conversations that they felt uncomfortable to have in that session. Because with the MDMA, even the sad and the tragic and the really difficult conversations,
it's all beautiful.
Yeah. And it's such a insight into, for me, what spirituality can be. Into like to be talk about like practicing gratitude. Like
big fan.
Like MDMA kind of is a little insight into that.
There's a lot there. I can't remember the comedian's name.
Anyway, just to finish off though, that couple, they both found peace with the inevitable of what was going to happen. Both of them.
Acceptance.
And they were able to get it all out. Because I think like as humans, sometimes, I mean, I feel like with us, we're able to talk about a lot of stuff where we can open up a lot of doors and some of the difficult stuff. But a lot of people, so many doors are closed and they're just unable to open up because they're scared of being vulnerable, or they're scared that they're going to...
We view death very weirdly over here in the West, and it's shushed and it's hushed away, and it shouldn't be. I mean,
even the way the body's taken away so quickly.
It's all a bit. We've got a strange way of approaching it. Before I go down the spirituality route on that, there was this comedian, just in terms of what you're talking about, that couple having the MDMA and just having these beautifully hard conversations and having them in such a manner that it's accepted and wonderful. He was saying he tried MDMA. He was on a podcast, and I can't remember the guy's name. I'm so sorry. If I remember, I'll let you know. And he was saying he tried MDMA like for the first time, and what he did was he was so full of love. He called up his friends. He was like, "I fucking love you, man." He goes through his phone book and he calls everyone. But he did an evaluation of it the next day, which I've never did once. When I was a kid. No, fuck no. My evaluation was, how many do I have left? Can I take the edge off on this Sunday? But he did like this real evaluation, and he kind of said he realized. It was the phrase that he used. I can't forget the phrase that he used. He said, "My cup was full and overflowing, and I just wanted to share it with everyone I loved."
Yeah.
And I thought, you get that through spiritual practice, through enough spiritual practice.
Yes.
You get that.
You do.
You really do. And I think, to segue into the spiritual thing.
That's spot on, isn't it?
Well, it is. It's gratitude and forgiveness and, accountability as well. And, being able to look in the mirror and actually say, like, man, I got some major flaws, and so does everybody else. And I'm no further disconnected from them than they are from me. Yeah. Just to be able to smile at that. Like, I'm really, really comfortable around people who are dying. Really comfortable, because they're some of the most honest people in the world.
Yeah, right.
And it scares a lot of people. They're not fucking, So I'm obviously a barber, and our shop is very pensioner heavy. There's a lot of old dogs get in there, and I'd say, for instance, one of them at the moment no longer can get in the shop. I'm going down to cut his hair in the care home that he's in, and he even said to me, it was fucking brilliant. I finished his hair. I was like, "There we go, Les. Is that okay?" Pop of a mirror. He goes, yeah. He goes, "Well, hopefully there'll be another one, but if not, it's been fun, hasn't it?" I'm like, "Fuck yeah, it has, man, Les." Like, that likely is the last time I'll ever see that guy. And that was last week, and that's fine. That's comfortable.
Yeah.
Because death's not the opposite of life.
No,
it's the opposite of death. Life's the bit that happens in between. And
it's just the next doorway.
It's the next doorway, man. And it's like, I've met people when they've been close to people. Say cancer's a big thing. Okay, "Oh, did you hear such and such has got cancer and they're dying?" I can't help it. My brain goes, "You're dying right now. Now
it's happening.
You're dying. It's a process.
Yeah." It's part of it.
You come out, and the death process starts. That's it. And when you talk to people who are close to death,
people get all hushed, don't they?
But when you get close to death, or when you see people who are close to death, and when they're close to these things, there's a particular look in the eye, and I've only ever seen it in self-realized gurus. And deeply spiritual people. And it's just this look of, this is life. A complete acceptance. They've let go of their attachment to, not emotion, but their attachment to what emotion meant to them. So for a lot of us, emotion is, that's a memory response. That's what, a lot of the time, what emotion is. And you have a bad response to something, it's because you've tied a particular emotion to a past experience, and you say, this is important, so I'm not going to experience that again, or I'm going to experience it, whatever it may be. These people don't have that. They're like, "Oh yeah, I experienced that. That was cool." And that it unnerves so many people, and I'm just like, give that to me.
And that's partly how you can recover, right? That's part of what recovery is.
Totally.
Being aware of that and having that. That's how you can get rid of your triggers. That's how you can dissolve your triggers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was Ram Dass who said very, very beautifully, wisely, and cheekily, said, the goal isn't to react, it's to respond. And you do that through practice of detachment, not in the negative sense. So you practice your meditation, you practice your breath work in the morning, you practice acts of selfless gratitude. You do these things over and over and over again. And at the beginning, they just kind of seem like quite self-indulgent at first. You're like, "Yeah, I'm meditating, I'm going to be this, I'm spiritual as fuck. Oh, yeah." And then you really start meditating and you can't stop fucking crying because everything's coming to the surface. And you're like, "I thought this was supposed to be peaceful." No, you're going to get to peaceful. You got to bash your shin on a few, corner ends first before you get there. And you do it enough and enough. And his Ramdas's thing is that we're all one. There's no difference between the spirit of us all. We're all just experiencing life. So therefore, we are the same person. We're just living different things. Treat everyone as if they are God in drag was one of the things that he said. And I fucking love that. Every person's God, regardless of what your understanding of God might be. But every person is God. It's just wearing a different mask. So we're all the same thing. And if you can get to that, I know I'm sounding preachy. I am not there. But I'm directing myself there.
It's a lifelong journey.
Oh, it's going to be, yeah. I'll be on my deathbed and I'll be like,
yeah, nice.
It is nice. And, you practice these things enough so that when a situation explodes or when something bad happens or when something glorious happens, whatever, you don't react. You respond.
It's difficult, isn't it?
It's really difficult.
It's like I told you just before we started this.
If you're a parent. Sorry, I'm just joking.
Exactly. No, absolutely. Yeah. And especially, well, I'll divert a little bit, as being a parent, because so many of triggers that we have with our children are so deeply ingrained from how we were treated as children, right? It's like that full cycle. And if you don't catch it, you repeat the cycle.
Absolutely.
And that's why triggers are so difficult. But it's like I was telling you before we started this podcast with Briggy, my partner. I reacted. I didn't respond.
Yeah.
And it's because I was triggered by something, and I realized quite quickly afterwards. I was like, "Fuck! I didn't handle that right." and I'm like, I like to think that I've got to a point now where, whatever I'm thinking and saying, at the same time, I'm kind of watching it as well.
Yeah.
That
to observe.
Yeah. Just to see, just a constant, checking how things are going sort of thing.
That's a good thing to
practice.
And
in that moment, I was just like, sometimes it kind of pulls you, it's almost like your ego goes, gotcha. Yeah. And you fucking reacted. What a dickhead.
Double win for the ego.
Yeah. And then you see the chaos unfold, like an upset partner. And it's like, why are things unstable all of a sudden? What's wrong with this? Why is the relationship all fucked? It's like, oh, it's me again. Yeah.
Here we go.
It's difficult. It's difficult.
It is. And I think, that observational thing, there's a real good practice that anyone can try. And you do it for a week. All you do is you watch yourself. All you do, non-judgmental. You don't go, you fucking dick. But you watch yourself and you go, essentially, you just say, am I telling the truth? Am I being true?
To yourself?
Yeah. Are my words true? Are my actions true? Am I actually acting out what I believe? And most people, after just a few days of doing that, are like, I am so full of shit. I am so full of shit. And it's not necessarily bad, because that's kind of, how society is, and we're also interested in each other's lives, and that's, But if you really evaluate that and you kind of go, I'm going to start changing these little things. Just a good one is to stop speaking falsely about yourself. And that can be negative and positive falses. Whether you're dragging yourself down when deep down you actually know, actually I'm okay at that. But you don't want to feel like a brag. And then the complete flip, where, you're bolstering something in your head, you're going, I know I can't play guitar that well. Or whatever it is. But, I'm talking the talk. When you start reducing those things down to the truth of what they are, you find you have very little to say.
Yeah.
And you just start to observe.
Yeah.
You just start to observe. And then when somebody comes to you with something or you witness something, you don't react because your head's not full of all this garbage bullshit that the ego just, sucks off so passionately. It loves it. It's not being fed. You're starving the ego essentially, and then you respond wholeheartedly and fully. Like in what you said before, in that situation, you wouldn't react. You'd respond to it with action instead of words.
What do you do when you meet someone who's clearly you know, they're full of bravado, they're talking the talk, and I'm sure, like, as do I, like, you can tell quite quickly that they're not being their authentic self at all, because you're watching a show of the person, and like no idea who's behind.
It's like peacocking.
Yeah, like no idea who you are. Like spoken to you for an hour, no idea. Like, where do you feel like a responsibility to kind of help them do it? Like what do you do with someone like that? Because for me, I'm at a point in my journey where if I meet someone like that, I'm like, I can't. Like I just can't. And I want to. And I want to, but I'm just, I want to be like kind of open to everyone and accepting. And I know that's the goal, and I know I will get there. But at this point, I'm just like, I haven't got the space or the time for this.
I just observe.
Yeah.
I just, you know, I look, I kind of look at them and go, oh, that was me when I was 16. You know?
Yeah, right.
But then I've got to check
you
myself.
Can't say that. You're just like I was when I was fucked up.
Unfortunately. I think that's why I keep, you know, my friends that I have are very genuine friends, because I'm sort of horrendously honest that way. But I'll just observe and I'll recognize, you know, yeah, my brain will say, fucking hell, that was you when you were 16 or your 20s, 25. And then I catch myself, and this is all in like a microsecond, then I catch myself going, oh, what, so you think you've massively improved?
Yeah, right.
I'm like, no, I'm a fucking barber. I talk shit for a living. Like,
I catch myself like judging, and then I'm like,
really?
Who are you?
Yeah,
but then I'm like, but I still can't be bothered with them.
I don't know. I think I find those, because they're character displays, and whether they're genuine to the person or not, whether it's a masquerade, whether it's a facade, whether it's somebody, this is the other thing to take into account as well. If somebody's not being their genuine self, it's not necessarily always negative. And by that, what I mean is, if you say, for instance, I wanted to become a student of Catholicism, all right? Which will never happen, by the way. But I'm just saying, if I wanted to be, I would start acting that character out.
Yeah.
I'd start acting pious or whatever my view of what that would be, as I was learning what it actually was. So there's a practice that I've given to a few people who, you know, don't deal with confidence too well, which is when you walk into the room, you own a CEO company.
You only see what?
You own a CEO. You're the CEO of a major company. You own that company. You walk in there with that power and you act it out. You just don't tell people the business of you. Of the company that you run. Fake it until you make it, to a degree. But there's a lot of the kind of, if you start anything, if you're pursuing anything, doing anything, you're a complete idiot in that field, because you're at the beginner. You're a fool. You're not there. But you have to, if you remain the idiot and the fool who doesn't act out what they're trying to pursue, you'll just remain the idiot and the fool. If you're the idiot and the fool because you're starting it new and you're acting it out, you'll start letting go of the idiocy bits and you'll start living out the whatever it is. So I'm aware a lot of people go into social situations with a real false confidence for a positive reason, because they're trying to gain confidence.
Yeah. You need to make the mistakes to be able to learn.
Absolutely. So when you meet these people that are full of it, this is why we shouldn't judge so harshly each time, because you don't actually know the motivation of what's going on. It's like when you meet somebody and they just rub you the wrong way. You know, they've just got to talk negatively about everything. You've only met them the once. They're sitting there, you know, they're complaining about taxes or immigration or, you know, their ex or their kids and all this. Like, that person could have just woke up that morning and found out their mother died.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
Yeah, you have no idea.
You know, you've got no. It's like when you see, and I'm just going to say guys, and I know it happens to girls as well, but I see more on guys. You know, where like something simple, like they're trying to unlock the door and the key just won't fucking go, and they slam the key to the floor and they kick the fucking door and the fuck. It's got nothing to do with the keys.
Yeah, right.
It's got nothing to do with the lock.
Yeah.
So, I think that's the observational bit.
Talked a bit about mental health.
Yes.
We went to the past. Now let's go to the present. What is mental health?
Yeah.
For you now.
What are we doing now? So, well, I had a reach out call from an old friend. It was never not a friend. There's always large gaps in between us. And he messaged me just saying his wording was a little bit different from what I was aware of from this guy. This is a guy we used to session very hard together. He's my tattooer, and there was all that scene and so much cocaine. Sorry, so much fucking cocaine. And he messaged me and he's like, "Oh, look, I'm setting up this group of people. I really think you'd be a beautiful addition." And excuse me, I was a little taken back by his wording because it wasn't the J that I was.
He sounded different.
He sounded so different, so different. So we meet up, and he comes down. He comes down here to Colour Coats. We have a cold dip and everything like that. I'm like, yeah, we'll have a chat. I'm still doing my cold stuff. Like, you get in. We start talking, and he just had this transformation, this complete transformation. And essentially, he's been on an ayahuasca thing. That wasn't the only factor. There was a lot of different things he'd been doing, a lot of self-development and a lot of self-work. And from like the last time that I saw him, where we were both plied pretty full of amphetamines, to this time seeing him, the guy's now doing sound baths for people.
What's a sound bath?
So a lot of Tibetan singing bowls, gongs. You essentially you get yourself down into a meditative state, and then you kind of lie down and just have a bath of sound, like wash over you. And there's a lot of research with regards to sound therapy, and it's very hard to kind of disprove what people would say is airy-fairy, but it's very much there. So he's doing these kind of things. He's doing shamanic courses, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on with this guy? Like what the hell's happening? And we sit and talk, and he mentioned something similar. He's like, well, you're now following Sanatana Dharma, Hinduism, you're meditating every day, you breath work, you do chanting. Chanting is a really big part of my life, like performing mantra chantings. Yeah. And it turns out he's setting up this group, which is like a men's circle, essentially. And he introduces me to these 3 other guys, and I'm like, who the fuck are these people? They're insane. But in the greatest way, And so this group was formed that's called Conscientious Kings. And I do want to say very, very flat out, there is no trained therapist in this group. There's no trained psychologist in this group. We're not offering any form of counseling or therapy or anything like that. What we're providing is a space for men who have either had a look at themselves or want to have a look at themselves, for them to come and kind of open up their hearts a little bit and kind of break that mold so they can actually feel what's happening, and they're accepted with love and gratitude. We don't care what walk of life you're from. And in these groups, there's essentially I'll take you through the guys in the group because they're all interesting. They all bring something so different. So we're going to start with my little Irish Avenger, Corab, or Corab, depending on how you want to pronounce it. He's just he's so softly spoken. He just makes you feel so secure and safe the moment you meet this guy. The way in which he talks. And he's got this wonderful Irish ramble with him that is just, you can't get mad at him if he goes off topic, because he's going to come back to topic. And he is so relaxed when he talks. And he has such a philosophical way of looking at life. And he applies it, which I think is amazing. Then you've got Martin, who is this, like, I don't know, like, I always laugh when I see him. I'm like, you're like the Chinese Buddha. He's this big fucking bundle of just smile. Like, just smile, and he hugs you. And when he hugs you, you've been hugged. You know, you might even need a slight hospital appointment afterwards for a broken rib or two. And he does a lot of stuff with what's called cacao. So there's a cacao ceremony, which is essentially just the purest form of chocolate. Inverted bunny ears for those on the Spotify. And when you have cacao, it does have medicinal properties to it. It lowers your blood pressure, it slows your heart rate, it makes you feel very relaxed and open. And he does a lot of work with that. He does fire walking. He's running a fire walking group, which is happening in a couple of weeks. I think we should have a look at that. Might be something. Then we have Jake, who's the woodsmith, the woodcrafter. He provides these meditations that are just like I've meditated for 10 years now, so it's something like that. And I've never experienced a guided meditation like I have with Jake. It's just unreal. He's got this very interesting... He's funny when you meet him because he's kind of like, are you actually in the room? He is the fucking room. Yeah, right. He's the space between the walls. He's just so like phenomenally laid out, and that's what he brings to the group. And then, like I said, Jay, who's kind of the spearhead of it all, he does a lot of work with shamanic practices, and I don't mean in the appropriative way. He's very, very earnest and honest with where he's got his knowledge and how to apply the knowledge and what to do with it. So, and I, in that group, would then kind of do the chanting section, because we kind of have a chanting thing. So it's all of those guys combined, we decided to put together this free, completely free, there's no charge, because it should be open for every man that's available, to come and basically be honest and regain a bit of strength through softening the heart. Now, I know that might turn a lot of people off, because I know myself, like right now in the development that I'm in working on myself, is that I'm making myself a lot tougher. That's what I need. That's what my family needs at the minute. And I think that's how I could benefit the world, is by being a little bit more tougher and a little bit more earnest. But I can only do that by softening certain aspects.
So someone that comes for the first time to this group, what can they expect coming in?
You're going to come into a very safe place. Very safe place. You are not going to be judged for anything that you say.
It's so fucking important.
It really is. It really is. I mean, we do have some ground rules. We are a men's group. We are there to bolster up the masculine. We're there to help men feel comfortable and regain the power of their masculinity. We tend not to accept the phrase toxic masculinity. We don't believe that's a thing. Okay. Because there's no aspect of masculinity that's toxic. No. Like there's no aspect of the feminine that's toxic. There's toxic people. There's toxic practices. Absolutely. No one can deny that. We will not accept the dragging down of the feminine. So say if somebody comes into the group and they've been very hurt in a relationship, if they start spouting about how all women are this, they're not going to get kicked out of the group by any stretch of the imagination. But we're going to talk to them very honestly, very, very, very honestly, and saying, you're pinning your pain on somebody else right now. We're going to do the self work, and that's what we're about: dealing with ourselves, working on ourselves, refinding our power. And I really want to reiterate this. Therapy doesn't work for a lot of men, and we're starting to understand why, because it is tailored towards the feminine. And what the feminine needs is very different from what the masculine needs. I'd say anybody who wants to call that social constructs and all this kind of business, you can have those talks elsewhere.
Sure.
We're here to re-empower men, to let them know they've not lost any power. It's there. It's in you. That strength's in you. That the fatherhood, the husband, the lover, the boyfriend, or whatever role you're playing in life, your masculinity is there for you, and it is your strongest fucking weapon. It is your strongest weapon.
And to do it in to do it with respect and love, right?
Absolutely.
Like, because that's where the conflict is for guys. Sometimes they think that to be masculine, you've got to be brash and a bit rough and a bit like sometimes degrading, but it's like you can be in your masculine with respect and love and appreciation for the feminine and for everyone. Like it's necessary.
I think that's the only way you can be masculine.
To be truly masculine.
To be really honest, I think that's the only way you can be masculine.
And when you hear, because I've not been to any like support groups other than the ADHD one that I mentioned earlier, but when you hear of like a group of men getting together to reconnect with their masculine, people... Okay,
it resonates.
But a lot of people straight away go like, "Oh, it's some like Andrew Tate bullshit," because that's what we see, right? And it's like it couldn't be further from the truth.
What colour's your Bugatti?
You know, like, but that's like a bunch of guys having to like make themselves feel, and it's like
it's not that. Yeah. It's not the Andrew Tate. You know, I mean, like if I'm really honest, I actually don't know too much about Andrew Tate. I've seen some small videos that were horrendous, and I've seen some that I actually nodded and agreed with.
Same.
So I'm just kind of like, whatever. As far as I'm aware,
that's a social media algorithm thing.
Well, as far as I'm aware, he's a very intelligent salesman. But anyway, different aspect of that. No, we're not out there telling young guys to, you know, get money, get accolades, do all this. Like, that's each individual's fucking life to deal with. What you want to pursue in life, be it cars, be it women, be it money. I've got no problem with money, you know. Be it like whatever, just, you know, self-centeredness, or, you know, a good relationship with your dad or your mom, like, whatever it is. We're there to help you realize that what you feel you've lost isn't lost. It's not permanently gone. And from doing the few circles that we've done, the guys have done more than me. I haven't been present for 2 of them. But the overall message that I get from every guy, and we spoke about this when we met up earlier, was that regardless of how it was painted, whatever words were used, the guys are all feeling the same thing. They've lost respect. They've lost their power, however that may be for the individual. And they greatly feel fucking unloved. And every walk of life, I'm talking from rich people, old people, homeless people, you know, whatever it is. These guys are all telling the same story with different words. They're all telling them. So we're providing a space where you can experience something you'll probably never experience anywhere else. And I don't want to say it's formatted too much, because it is very free-flowing at the same time. I mean, you know, us and the guys, we do talk. We say, well, we should probably start with this, move to this, X, Y, Z. And so in the nitty-gritty of it, there's breath work. There is Martin runs this, who's the big cuddly guy. He comes up with these games, and they're fucking phenomenal because they're so disarming. You end up just being so honest. And, you know, he had one like, I think it was the 5 Ps, and then you just had a quick fire answer, and it was like, what's your passion? What's your power? What's your...
Clever.
Yeah, but the last one was always the one where everyone stuck on, which was, what was your pain? You know, so he'd quick fire these things.
Yeah. But before you shut down the question, you're involved in the game.
Bang, go. But then there's always space for every man to expand and extrapolate. And I was really judgmental going into it, because I was like, well, everyone's just going to want to talk their piece. That's all people are going to want to be there is for themselves. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Oh, fuck, I was so wrong. I was so wrong. How much I found myself listening and really just being like, almost to the point where I was like, I don't want to answer the question. I want to listen to other people. But there was a bit of self-avoidance in there, so I did it anyway. So, you know, Martin will take you through that. And then Coreb he just has this way. He'll talk to everybody about whatever they've said, and he'll not dismantle it, but he'll dissect it so lovingly and understandingly. And then Jake would take us through a meditation, which would either lead on to a round of chanting, which is what I would do, or chant would go first, then meditation. And then it'll end with a sound bath, which is very... my first experience of a sound bath was in our first circle that the Conscious Kings had put together. And that experience is something that I'm both desperate to and terrified of trying again.
Really?
Yeah, it was very emotional, very, very emotional. And I understand sound therapy. I understand the power of sound. I know, I do chanting, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Which was the base, should be the base of all mantras, in my opinion. When you chant that, I'm aware of what happens in the body. I know what happens to me, and I'm aware of how that makes me feel. And it was like my feet kicked out from under me, man. It was just like, fuck, I was a kid again. And I was apologizing for being stupid.
Huh.
And I remember the memory. I know it very clearly. And I was like, I thought I'd settled that business.
Yeah. Maybe not so much.
Yeah. So that's kind of where my understanding and dealing with men's mental health has ended up taking me, is to this point of providing a service for people as well, and a safe space, a space for men to sit in their masculine and not be ashamed of it, because you're bogged down so much these days, You're rapists, you're murderers, you're the cause of everything, or it's only men in CEO suites. There's no generalized positivity around men unless they're playing sport. And, and it's just like men, along with women, build the infrastructure of life.
Yeah.
We do it together as a team, but we are separate groups, and we don't need to be pointing the fingers in between these groups.
I agree.
And I think it's important for men to know that they're essential. And they're necessary. They're so fucking necessary. There's always this joke going around, oh, what do you do if all the women were removed from the world? And all the guys are like, oh, I'd have a good night's sleep. Or, no, you wouldn't. Fucking society would collapse.
Yeah, of course it would.
Your healthcare systems would be gone. Your childcare systems would be gone. Your nursing systems would be completely fucking eradicated. A lot of your science industries would go. And on the flip side, when the women are asked, what would you do in a society without men? They're like, oh, I'd walk around the street feeling safe. And no, you wouldn't. Your society would collapse.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's nuance, isn't there? There is. It's a complicated one, but I definitely think there needs to be more compassion for men, and men need somewhere safe to go. I think that they definitely need somewhere safe to go.
Absolutely. I think what you're saying there with compassion, we're not providing a space where you have to earn your compassion.
No.
It's given to you.
I've got a question to ask you, but I really need to piss.
Questions from the toilet.
Okay, so let's go back to what's the men's group called again?
So, the men's group is called Conscious Kings. We don't actually have a social media presence at the minute. That was something I was supposed to do on the weekend. And whoopsie.
By the time I publish this, are there any links or numbers that I can give to people in the description below? Yeah,
sure. So the best way to get a hold of Conscious Kings to see if you want to join, or even just to look into, is there's 3 Instagram pages to look at. So the first one is Jay's.
Yep.
And his is called Beyond Silence and Healing. That's his kind of sound bath page. Obviously, I'll give you the art.
All the clickable links will be in the description underneath.
That's nice to know. Good. There is my personal one, which I should really make private, but I don't. It's Dr. Tiggles.
Tiggles.
Yeah, Tigglez. It was an old gamer tag that I've never been able to let go of. Cool. And I still use that. Or there is my my Hindu or Sanatana Dharma page, which is just a Govinda Das with a 0. Just message through there.
Question.
That's it.
For any guy, bloke, geezer, that isn't familiar with spirituality, meditation, chanting, any of that, and is a little bit apprehensive, dubious, skeptical even, but feel...
Because of the woo-woo.
or because it's just foreign to them. But they're aware enough that that they can benefit from being in a safe place with other guys.
Sure.
What would you say? What would you say to them?
Don't be put off by the sort of my talks of spirituality and stuff like that. That's something that's very centric to me. Like I said, there's 5 of us in this group. We all have different views, different beliefs, but we have a running agreement that is compassion, love, acceptance, and an open door policy. So even if you're not into spirituality, you don't need to be spiritual to meditate. You don't need to be spiritual to perform a mantra or a chant. If that's something that puts you off, and I can only really focus on the mantra bit because it's the only bit that I have any sort of form of real knowledge of, is that from a practical and scientific point of view, you're there to lower your heart rate and your blood pressure and lower your brain waves. You put yourself in the beta and theta brain waves, I believe it is. So the spiritual aspect, it's not a driving force in this at all. It just happens to be that us 5 guys are quite spiritual. And to be really honest, it doesn't really play too much of a role in the group for the people attending. It plays an important role to me, as it does in every moment of my life. So being here to me is a spiritual experience, as well as being in the men's group, as well as sitting on the toilet. It's all one to me, and that doesn't get bled out into these circles, because, as you say, a lot of atheistic driven people who feel something's misaligned and wrong, you don't have to call it spiritual. You can just say it's the abstract, that weird bit that you can never quite comprehend or put your finger on, that little bit of life that's out there and you can't quite figure it out. Just walk through the door, give it a shot. That's what I'll say. Give it a shot, because you ain't going to get judged. You're not going to get told off. Anything you open up and share about isn't going to be pulled on you later on. We're not going to turn around and say, well, you said X, Y, Z. So why are you acting like this now? It's like, no, it's not our goal. Don't be intimidated by the spiritual when you hear us talking about spirituality.
So for me, like, talking for me.
Yeah.
I've never been to like a group like this, and I can.
But you're coming to the next one on the 13th of December. Just a little plug.
13th of December. That's my parents' wedding anniversary as well. I
think it's the 13th. It's the third Friday of each month.
Last question.
Yeah.
And we're gonna do this again, and we'll go deeper into your story and your journey.
Okay.
But just to kind of like open it up a little bit, when did you feel like your journey into self-awareness and understanding of all these different elements of the self, when did that begin? And was there a moment that ignited that?
Yeah, absolutely. I was a militant atheist, and I mean that. I mean, if I got a whiff that you had any spiritual inclination, religious inclination, it was on. You were my adversary, and I wanted to tear down your belief system, and I wanted to wake you up. That type of fucking thing. The
irony, right?
Yeah, fuck yeah. I'm like, back in the day, like the Ku Klux Klan, when they were hyper religious, they used to burn crucifixes on people's lawns. I was there, like, fucking burning scientific equations on priests' lawns, like fucking fight Einstein, bitch. And one day I used to have this routine where I walked to and from work, from where we are in Whitley Bay, up to the locals in this area, just behind the Village Hotel in the Cobalt Business Park. And it's quite a walk. It's about 4 miles or something like that. And I used to do that every day, back and forth. I love it. That was my time. And I was coming back one evening.
What age are you at, just to give a timeline sort of thing?
About...
Well, how long ago was it?
33,
Okay.
32, 33-ish type of...
How old are you now?
21.
21 years old.
40.
Fresh.
I'm 40.
Fresh. 40 and fresh.
Like a crustacean. No, my back hurts when I sit up now. Right, I'm 40. And, I was walking home and my music had died. I remember that. I always walked with music. Music's like a therapy for me. I am a musician. You know, I play whatever I can get my hands on. I write a lot of music for myself. So music's a real integral part of my life. Brought up with it, parents into it, brothers into it, everything. And my music thing had died. I think it was an old MP3 player from back in the day. And I was walking past one of the fields, and the sun was setting, and it had been raining. This is going to sound so stupid, it's not going to make any sense, but it's very hard to describe emotion, I think. And particularly like spiritual emotion. And the sun was just like peeking down. It was behind the Monk's Seaton School, actually, and there was a bunch of seagulls, and they were pitter-patting on the field. And they do that to get the worms up after it's been raining. And my brain just kind of went, there's no difference between the worm and the seagull at all. Like, they're intrinsic to each other. They both need each other, you know. Seagulls do a lot of work to the land, which a lot of people don't know about. They rut around on the land, and this creates oxygenation. And from there, that attracts worms. Worms oxygenate the soil. And my brain just went on this weird, like, everything's fucking one. Everything's connected. And the beauty of the sunset. And there was something about the way that sun was setting. The light hit these seagulls in such a way. And if you're from the northeast, if you're from Whitley Bay, the coast, you'll probably have a natural dislike of seagulls. But if you actually take your time and look at one, it's a beautiful, beautiful creature. And that happened. I was like looking at this thing I considered a pest for 10, 20 or 15 years, like whatever. I'm like, what a fucking perfect creation. My brain just went, there's no mistakes. There's no mistakes. And I just started to cry. Like, I just started to bawl with tears. And from then, kind of a spiritual aspect of myself started to develop, but I kept it very quiet. I was embarrassed by it.
Yeah.
Because the day before, I was just like, fight me, priest. Literally the day before. You know,
do you feel like that was almost like a divine intervention? Like that was a moment that you needed to, because there would have been a lead up to that point, right? Like that moment.
There wasn't. That's how impactful that there was nothing led up to it. Nothing. I was having no previous.
But you'd had resistance to a spiritual.
I'd had aggression towards people that were spiritual. Because I just thought, how fucking idiotic of you. How dare you say you know you've got it all answered, all the whilst thinking I've got it all answered. Yeah. And I think my own hypocrisy got exposed. But there is something, and this is going to sound so out the blue. My granddad was a very important man to me. And whenever I messaged my mum and said, you know, I was thinking of granddad today, you know, she always replies, she still does, she replies with the same thing. Oh, it's just him tapping you on the shoulder to remind you he's there. My mum's not a deeply religious person. She's quite a spiritual person. She's got no religious convictions, though. And that, I know that's not going to make sense to anybody, but in that sunset, like, I saw my fucking granddad, man. And I saw this wonderful guy who was just from an era where you had to be hard, but he was soft and he was just fucking beautiful. And I saw him in that moment. I don't have the words for that, but I saw him in that moment. And the next morning, like, I woke up and it was still in my mind. Like, I went back home and did like a load of fucking drugs and got fucked up with like whoever I was with at the time. And just in the morning it was there. I was like, fuck, what is this? And I just started looking at myself. I just started looking at my thought patterns. I started reading. I started reading a lot of psychology, a lot of like religious history, because I realized that I was deeply interested in religion. I couldn't argue with a priest if I didn't know the Bible, and I know the Bible backwards and inside out. But I did that on purpose so I could fucking argue with them. And at that time, I was going through the Quran as well, because that was my next mission, was, right, fuck it, I'm going to fight. Like,
interesting.
Yeah. And I still haven't stopped reading religious texts. In fact, it's become more, but I'm doing it for a different reason. I'm finding,
there was
finding something
flip.
else. Yeah. So the same kind of actions produce two different outputs.
That's fucking
which
beautiful.
I think is fucking weird and beautiful at the same time. I still can't comprehend that. I still don't quite get it.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. I'm not going to claim to be able to say, that was God or like whatever it is.
But we don't always have to either.
No, we don't have to. It just is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. And it was beautiful. I'm so thankful for it. I'm thankful. And there was a couple of year period where I was going through all this and I was evaluating myself. A lot of looking in the mirror, and I mean physically looking in the mirror, standing there and talking and going, why the fuck are you saying these things? Why are you acting this way? What is it you're doing? What's your goal? And the answer was nearly always, I don't know. I was like, well, you probably shouldn't be doing that then. Yeah, and I started to eliminate things from my life. And I just found life got a bit better. And then I became aware of the people around me. And I really looked at my past and the family's past, and a lot of people, as I mentioned earlier, taking their own life in my life. And I started to look at that, and I was a bit like, these were people that I've loved deeply, even from a distance, even if I wasn't overly too close to them. I loved them deeply, and then I realized I love people deeply. I'm in love with humanity, which I'd always said was a fucking curse. Humanity is a plague. It's a cancer on the planet. What an awful way. Now, when I look at what an awful way to view myself.
Yeah, right.
What an awful way to view my mother, my father, my brother. They're all humanity.
Yeah.
My own children. Well, it's a disgusting way to view life. It's a disgusting thing to say. And I think with that slow realization that I'm not disconnected from reality, I'm not disconnected from life or people or spirit, made me look at myself and made me go, oh, fuck, you've got some issues. And you push them on people to make yourself feel better.
Yeah.
And that's when the work.
And that's when it begins.
That's when it started. Yeah,
And that's when it begins.
Yeah.
Zane, mate, it's been a fucking pleasure having you on
It's
today.
been fucking beautiful being here, man.
And we'll do it again.
Absolutely, my
great.
dude. This has been fun. Cold, fun.
Fucking cold.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, we're virtually outside, and it is like, it's December in a few... like, it's December in a few days, and we are in a brick. It is cold, but it's good. It's good.
Cold.
I think that's something I'd love to talk about next time is the cold.
Yeah?
Yeah, the cold. I've done the cold training for about 10 years. Do your cold showers, people. Do it.
Nice one.
We'll expand on that later.
Wicked. Thank you, mate.
That was so fucking cool, dude.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
Yeah.
A Merry Christmas to anybody who watches this after the New Year.
Even keep this bit in.
No, you
You
should.
need to watch every fucking episode.
Watch it. Watch it.
Subliminal messages. Watch every episode.
Watch it or I'll break your fucking legs. Like, it's December in a few days, and we are in a brick. It is cold, but it's good. It's good.
cold.
I think that's...
I know we be quarantined tonight.